Good evening. My name is Life Advisor Sana, and my topic today is communication for understanding. The reason I decided to talk about communication is because it is such a vast and misunderstood topic of discussion. Communication can be the icing on the beautiful cake of marriage, or it could be the lack of it, a reason for divorce. Communication can be the difference between a contractual agreement and a court date. Communication can be the beginning of a mutual relationship, or the lack of clarity in communicating can be a fight or a war between nations. There are so many ways to communicate these days, and with all the different and new ways to communicate, we understand each other less and less. You can communicate verbally, non-verbally, in text, in email, on the phone, or with your body language, etc. I remember when my mother used to communicate with her eyes. She did not have to say a word, but we sure understood exactly what she was trying to say, like, sit your butt down right now, just with that one look. That's communication. Knowing what tools to use when we want to communicate is important. We cannot communicate through email if we don't know how to use the computer. We cannot communicate by text if we don't have a phone with text capabilities. And we definitely cannot communicate clearly if we are not clear on what we want to say. But understanding what we are trying to communicate to each other is also relative to who is listening. I thought that for this presentation, the best way to communicate my point about how important communication is would be to communicate my points in a few simple steps. So, before you can begin to put these steps together, you must know thyself. You must know who you are and what you are about in order to successfully communicate with others. Many of us do not know ourselves. We may not have been in a position where we had to communicate regularly. There are some who just don't communicate at all, although they know how. And there are some who are to others or perceived by others as the worst communicators in the world. The world. Knowing who you are can be the difference between perception and clarity. You know your stance, your ideals, your belief system. You know what you will accept and what you will not. You know what pleases you and what annoys you. You know you. This is clearly a good start for communicating your ideas or thoughts to others. Let's start with the steps. Step 1. The 5 P's. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. I learned that in my communications class. What I also learned is that if you are properly prepared to communicate your idea, your thought, your needs, then you will be successful in getting that across to your target audience, whether it be your husband, your children, the auditorium of people, your boss, the judge, etc. A thoughtful, purposeful plan of action helps to eradicate any misunderstandings one may have in what you are attempting to communicate. Step 2. The 10-second rule. This is a rule I invented for myself so that I can better communicate my thoughts in any situation. I saw something recently that said, listen and silent have the same letters. This made me realize that you have to be able to be silent in order to listen. You have to be able to listen in order to respond. Talking, listening, and responding is what we call communicating. We spend so much time trying to put together our response to someone's comment that we miss the point of the comment itself. My 10-second rule is this. I let someone speak. I listen carefully. I then take at least 10 to 20 seconds to absorb what is being said, formulate my response, and I then repeat the comment or statement in my head and then out loud by saying, so what you are saying is so and so and so. If they reply in the affirmative, then you know how you want to respond. And if not, this gives the person the opportunity to clarify if necessary, giving you a clear understanding of what they really mean in their communications to you. This saves a lot of time and trouble, and you never have to say, I didn't realize that you meant that, or that's not what I understood from what you said. These 10 seconds are also helpful in keeping one from reacting or responding without thought, or saying things that we may later wish we hadn't. We are reactive creatures. Many of us think less and react more to what others say and do. Using the 10-second rule allows you to think first and respond in a manner which is more characteristic of what and how you want to be viewed. A few seconds can seem like a lifetime, but also can go by extremely fast. Taking a few seconds may sometimes give you a calmer reaction, which then produces more effective results. Have you ever seen someone very slowly and quietly respond, like you're not sure if they're angry or not? Like, be afraid. Be very afraid. The 10-second thought process also allows for any anger to dissipate or be minimized by taking the time to respond rather than to feed the frenzy of an argument. If the other person is not intentionally trying to pick a fight, they will begin to respect your long pause because there is clarity on the end. Again, if you listen, then speak. Again, if you listen, then think, then speak, you have a better possibility of communicating your own thoughts to the person you are speaking with. You have to be able to communicate well in order for others to be able to understand your viewpoint. Thus brings the possibility they will agree with you. Isn't that what we want sometimes? We want to be in agreement, on the same page, in sync with one another. Or we can just respectfully agree to disagree with clarity and understanding. This is good communication. Step 3. Speak to the people in their own language. There is an art to communication. The art is knowing what you want to say prior to saying it, knowing who you are speaking to, who is your audience, and using your insight to say what you need to say in a manner in which the person you are speaking to can understand. For example, we talk to babies in baby talk. Goo goo gaga. We change our tone to what we think is more receptive to what the baby understands. How do we really know that they understand what we are saying in what we think is in their language? I have a philosophy, and that is, I speak to babies in the language in which I want them to understand me, and in a language that eventually they will be speaking anyway. No need to communicate in a language they probably don't even understand, because while in their infinite and inborn intellect and wisdom, they think we're crazy. And because babies can learn anything, even many different languages in their formative years, we have to embrace that fact. We miss the boat, many of us. We talk to them in our language while they are in utero, we play music to them, and we talk in English, and when they arrive, we speak as if we have digressed or regressed back to our own childhood. If you want to get someone who speaks Spanish to do something, you have to learn Spanish. Or you can get a translator and hope that they are communicating what you need with the intensity or the manner in which you would have communicated it yourself. Step 4. Know exactly what you mean and mean exactly what you say. So another order of business of communicating with each other is understanding the topic you may want to talk about. Once you know what you want to say, you must be clear on who you are talking to. Communicating to a group of 6-year-olds on how to clean up after themselves is different than communicating to a group of grown-ups. Or, I don't know, maybe not. Which brings me to the next step. Step 5. Pay attention to your emotions. Communication and emotions are interchangeable. Some people can communicate their ideas, their points with no emotion at all. But even having no emotion communicates the fact that there is a lack of emotion. How do we communicate our thoughts without interjecting our emotions so that the person receiving the information is not perceiving it differently than we want them to? We must first be fully there. Pay attention to someone's words and body language. People can communicate their satisfaction or dissatisfaction in many ways, some ways that you may or may not see coming. Tone of voice is also a great indicator as to what someone is trying to say. You can invite someone to your home, but it's the way you communicate that invitation that makes the difference. For example, "Hey baby, you can come over. I want to see you." Or, "Can you come over now?" Or, "I want to see you now." Or, "I need you to come over here right now." Your tone and communication skill can make the difference between having a nice, loving night and scaring someone away from the idea of coming to see you. You can say "I love you" many different ways, and it can mean many different things. For instance, "I love you, baby." "I love you, damn it." "I really, really love you, but..." Now that "but" part, that communication, always stops people in their tracks. Step 6. These are not all the steps that can be taken to communicate well. We adjust our communication skills to who we speak to, where we are, when we are speaking, why we are communicating, and what we need to say, and how to say it. There are some points others can add, I'm sure. But with that said, finally, when we are trying to communicate with someone, be pleasant. Sometimes frustration gets the best of us, and we lose our communication skills and replace it with profanity, a crazy tone, a crazy look, or the like. Don't try to force your opinions on others by communicating your views in a forceful manner. Remain pleasant in your attempt to share your points, and others will be more receptive to, number 1, understanding you and your point of view, and number 2, more apt to take a moment to make sure they respond accordingly and in the beautiful manner in which your point was presented. You know, bees with honey, sugar and salt don't mix. A smile goes a long way. Those types of things. Did I communicate that well? I certainly hope so. Let's not forget our communication challenge. This week, our communication challenge is to, number 1, challenge yourself to use the 10 to 20 second rule. See if that works for you. Number 2, think, listen, and be silent while others are speaking. Number 3, be ever so conscious of the way you communicate and who you are communicating to. Did you find it different with different people? How? That's my presentation for tonight, and that's my 2 cents. Thank you for listening, and have a pleasant evening.